All right, everybody, come on in. Come on in. Good to see you, SL. Good to see you, Sonny Clark. I got a question for you guys tonight. Tonight's going to be a different type of show. Tonight, we're going to dedicate it to catching up on all things that's been going on during Diddy's trial. So, this is a question. What happens when one of the most powerful men in music is no longer untouchable? Also, what happens when bodyguards start talking, ex-lovers start testifying, and the system finally starts asking questions we've ignored for decades? Tonight, that's exactly what we're going to answer. We're going to dive into the explosive trial of Sean Diddy Combs, a man once hailed as hip-hop visionary, now facing accusations that stretch far beyond celebrity drama and into the territory of organized crime. Alleged abuse, intimidation, weapon stockpiling, drug trafficking, and a defense team that's trying to convince the world that being toxic and abusive isn't the same as being criminal. But in this court, the court of public opinion, you are the jury and you get to decide. And tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the testimonies, as well as the tactics and the truth. Is Diddy the victim of a takedown or the architect of his own empire's collapse? Court is now in session. Let's get into it. Joining me tonight, as always, is that fiery civil attorney, Shatan Turner. Welcome back to Celebrity Court.
Hey, Your Honor.
Are you ready for it?
Back. I am. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All right, joining us also tonight is the author of Shit They Didn't Teach You in Law School, who also has the second edition coming out. Author, attorney Jason Weiss, come on in.
Thank you, Your Honor. It figures that I have a second book coming out, and you finally got the title of the first one right. If you want to see the book, you can just find me on Instagram at Ask Jason Weiss. Easiest way to find me, drop me a note.
That's JASONWEISS. Ask Jason Weiss. And last but not least, and we love him to death, humorist at law, Sean Carter. Sean Carter, get into the courtroom, please.
Hey, everybody. By the way, you can't reach me. All right. Don't be coming in all up in my DMs. Just stay where you are. I'll see you on the show.
You don't want nobody in your DMs?
No. I'm trying to stay married and alive. No, you stay out the DMs.
Even if they have a slip.
He don't
let me a slip exception, all right, but everybody else, you stay out of the DMs.
All right, everybody,
and not share the meanness. I told you somebody came for me the other day, so yeah, we want the love, keep the meanness to yourself.
It's like she doesn't like. Well, Shatan, let's trade seats for a few days. Okay, let's get into it. First up, guys, let's talk about this Kid Cudi testimony on retaliation. All right. Now, remember, he alleged a cocktail firebombing of Cudi's Cudi's Porsche. Cudi alleged a break-in and intimidation because he was dating Cassie. He also alleged relevance, so patterns of silencing and retaliation. So this is my question, because I have to be honest. When I watched the trial and saw Cudi's testimony, I wasn't convinced that you could say that Diddy did these actual things himself. Even though Cudi is rich, wealthy, tons of money, his cameras weren't working, but his house got broken in, his dog got locked into a room. Like, it was just something about that story did not make a lot of sense to me. So besides the public opinion like this, I want to ask you lawyers from a legal standpoint, right? I'm going to start with you, Attorney Carter, first. How does his testimony establish a pattern of retaliation in court if they can't prove it's him?
Well, no, he's saying it, and I agree. And they don't have any direct evidence. This is circumstantial evidence, right? She made this threat, and later something happened. We can't prove it directly, but if you had 35 of those situations where 35 cars blew up all over New York, you might suggest that maybe Diddy did it, right? And so they're going with this idea of circumstantial evidence, which is that, but it's weak in and of itself. The important thing we have to realize is that this is a case that's ongoing, right? We've got several more weeks of testimony. So at present, they haven't put it together, any of the pieces individually. Maybe they will. The question I guess I have is for the other lawyers, Your Honor, is if at some point you haven't put together the pieces, do people start tuning you out? Start saying, "Hey, every time you give me a piece of information,
I like
it's
that.
weak. I'm gonna stop listening to you."
Right. I like that argument right there, Attorney Carter, because this is what I'm finding is, and I know we're early on, but we have very high expectations. And I need to see stuff that's making him guilty for what, in my mind, he's being charged for, right? So one thing that we can't erase out of our minds is the domestic violence. We can't erase it. It's there. It's horrible. We're like, oh God, he should go to jail for that. But he's not on trial for that, right? He's on trial. He's on trial for RICO charges. He's on trial for prostitution, transportation. He's on trial for sex trafficking. He's on trial for drug and guns, right? So let me ask this question, because if they are not making me feel like he should be convicted for what he's being charged, then you can only imagine what those jurors feel like, considering I sit on a panel with some of the smartest lawyers every week, and I still I'm not convinced, right? So let me ask this question, because and I think I'll go to you, Jason, on this, because you were trying to explain this to me. In my mind, what Diddy did were simply threats, okay? There were threats because in my mind, you can't prove he did it. He can threaten you, but you can't prove he did it. So somebody, some lawyer somewhere needs to tell me, how can a threat without direct violence still be used to support a criminal charge?
So we hear it all the time, right? It's assault and battery, okay? So think about battery with a bat. That's when you actually hit, you do the touch, and that's what it is. So you go like this, you smack someone, you hit someone, battery. If I say to you, Your Honor, where you're sitting there in the Northeast and I'm sitting down here in the Southeast, Your Honor, if you don't do A, B, and C, I'm going to smack you across the head. Well, you know that even if I wanted to, there's no way I could smack you across the head right now. I'd have to get on a plane or drive all the way over there and do that. Now, maybe if I show up at your room, at your home, knock on the door, you might not answer the door because I told you I'm going to smack you across the head. That moment right there where I am in your living room at your front door, that could be deemed assault.
But he wasn't. They couldn't prove that he was ever at the dude's house. All of a sudden, his cameras aren't working.
But again, they cannot prove that he was there. I mean, even the testimony was, he was saying something about the two of them had words and they did whatever. And he's like, and he said to Diddy, now, what about my car? And Diddy's like, I don't know what you're talking about with your car. He's like, you blew it up. And he's like, no, I didn't. And that was the end. So I don't understand. That would be like me saying, well, what about my briefcase? I don't know where your briefcase is.
Shaitan, is what he's telling me then is that my verbal threats can still, even though you can't prove I followed through with them, is what Attorney Weiss saying, my verbal threats can be interpreted as assault.
Well, okay, go ahead.
No, see, that is what he's saying. He's also saying a finer point, which is they're separate crimes. So people don't have to engage in physical violence in order for what they've said to be actionable, right? And there are even other types of crimes that could ensue. Like there's some states have harassment by communication. Like you just can't say this is America, and there are certain things that you say that exceed free speech that can get you in trouble. And so what they're trying to say, because I've been thinking about this since we were in chambers, like why are they just a bunch of freaks and voyeurs and want to talk about sex all the time? Is that why they're giving us all this baby oil and freak off discussion in court? I don't think that's it. What I think they're attempting to do is to get the jurors to believe that Diddy did all of these bad things, right? Did he do the freak offs? Did he beat the women? Did he gaslight them? Did he abuse them? Did he blow up the car, right? They're trying to show all this stuff. And then they're trying to show that he would not have been able to do that had he not been using his business, right? And directing an illegal enterprise. So that's how they're trying to make their RICO case. So it's not so much Diddy as the man who's doing these things that are bad. It's Diddy as the mogul doing these things in a concerted way through his business. And so that's what, so stay with them. It's supposed to be an 8 to 10 week trial, but at some point, I think they're going to
have to shift.
Shift to him in his role as a business person,
right,
and say that the business was somehow facilitating all these things.
Okay, hold on, Jason. Delilah's child said, I need to hear Jason's point. I feel like it's a burning issue that needs to come out. Is she talking about the how the threat can be still criminal? Is that what you're talking about, Delilah?
Or maybe she was concerned that I was going to come there and smack you across the head. So, but again, here's the thing, right? You need to look at the person who is being assaulted, what they think. And when I was teaching at the law school level, it used to be that if I came up to a student and I raised my hand like I was going to smack the student, and the student thought I was going to smack him, that's assault. But if that student is laying and sleeping in class with their head on the desk, and I do the same thing, it's nothing, because they didn't have the fear that I was going to hit them, assault them. So yes, you can have the assault. That's the fear. That's the, I think you're going to hit me. I think you're going to do something to me. I think that's assault. And I think Attorney Carter wanted to add something probably pretty funny and important at the same time.
I just want to make sure that the outright, what I'm learning is that you got to be careful even threatening people.
100%.
I didn't know this. I didn't know. I always say, well, do you have proof? My whole thing has always been, what do you have proof? Do you have proof? You have proof. But you're basically saying that it doesn't even have to be that much to get to a criminal, to a case.
If you reasonably believe that I am going to reach across the table and smack you, then that's a problem. But again, you can't reasonably believe I can do that through the camera right here.
Got it.
Well, the thing is, let me ask you this, because the threat is important.
Huh?
The threat's important. Did Diddy call Cudi and say, I'm going to blow up your car? Or did he tell Cassie, I'm going to blow up his car?
My understanding is...
my understanding was that he told
he told Cassie, right? He said, hey, you better stop messing with me. I'm going to blow up your car.
Remember, they met out at the Soho house.
Right. But you understand that that's not a threat to Cudi. That doesn't make Cudi afraid, because he didn't say it to Cudi. Now, the thing what they're trying to prove, and this is the Attorney Turner says best, is that this is a criminal enterprise. Now, they haven't done it yet, but they're going to have to show that, and not only did Diddy do this, but somebody other than Diddy has done something. This is they haven't done yet. They haven't shown anybody else, except for the one witness we're going to talk about later, who has done anything else. How you have a criminal enterprise when you doing everything?
Okay,
so let's do everything myself. Right.
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 But you can do it. You do it in the name of your LLC.
Let's move it to intimidation then.
Well, wait. Brief threat though.
Hey guys.
There's.
So I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support. And I just want to say thank you so much, man.
That one you can turn off, Mayla. All he's saying is that thank you for all the love and support. For what? What did you do in court today?
But here's the thing about the threat, Al, and this is why I think they're telling the story.
Okay.
Is if they can confirm that he made the threat or get the jury to believe it was made beyond a reasonable doubt. And then what he said he was going to do actually happened. Even
I get it.
Cameras were broken, right? Like, that's just like, they didn't think you blew up the car, right? Because you didn't say you were going to blow up the car. So that's what they're trying to do through circumstantial evidence, is to prove that the threat was actually acted upon. So that's
I would go further and say, I don't think this has nothing to do with Cudi. This is Cassie's case. What they're trying to show is that she was so afraid of him for the sex trafficking thing. She was so coerced into the relationship that therefore, when he told her, he didn't tell Cudi anything. He told her, I'm going to blow up Cudi's car. And when later it blew up, now she's thinking, wait a minute, I can't go nowhere because this fool's serious. When he says something, it happens. It has nothing to do with Cudi at all, right? This is about them trying to show that he had her under his spell for the sex trafficking charge.
Got it. Okay, that's it. I didn't even interpret. I didn't even interpret it like that.
And maybe Diddy actually listened to Attorney Carter, and he didn't do it himself. He had someone do it for him.
He better have.
Right. Okay. Hold on, lawyers. Let's talk about really quickly the intimidation, because they leaned in heavily on the trial on intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know how does the law handle witness intimidation in a federal trial, whether it's past or present? How is that handled?
You cannot do it present. What you did in the past, prior to trial, prior to the charges, all that kind of stuff, right? Look, if you go tell somebody I'm going to beat you up, if you tell somebody I'm going to cut you off the payroll, but if you say while they're in trial and there's subpoenas and all of this, if you go testify, that's going to be the last time anybody ever gets to see you. Federal judge is not going to permit that. No way.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Last question on Kid Cudi. We're going to move on. What does the prosecution need to prove, Attorney Carter, to link this testimony to broader criminal conduct? I think, Shaitan, you can join in because you were helping him. But I love the way you made the light bulb go off in my head, the way you explained that.
Right.
So you want me to repeat it again? So my question to both you and Attorney is, what does the prosecution need to prove to link this testimony to broader criminal conduct? Because both of you are saying the same thing, pretty much, that they're just painting a picture right now, which I think is not a great picture. But you're saying that this could eventually, once they get to really what they're trying to dig their teeth into, which is a broader criminal conduct. So what do they need to prove to link the testimony to that?
They're going to have to show, and they're trying to do it now by circumstantial evidence, to say, look, Diddy was a bad man. And Cassie reasonably believed that because this thing happened. The car blew up. And then she reasonably believed it because the next thing happened, we tell you about next week. And the thing we're going to tell you about next week. And the thing we're going to tell you about next week. But here's the problem I have with that. If you have a really strong case, you come out with your best stuff first.
That's what I was thinking too. Because now the jury, you got to convince them.
Thank you.
The jury's thinking, why are we here? I see.
And this can't be the best thing you have, some circumstantial thing that Cudi's car happened to blow up.
Right.
And you have no direct evidence to it. The only evidence, by the way, that's direct, the only DNA found for the car was a woman. That rules out Diddy completely, which the defense is going to push on. So it's like, it seems to me like I understand why they're trying to do this. They're trying to show that that Cassie was so in fear that she had to do whatever Diddy said because he was blowing up stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's not the best evidence, right? It's like, you got to show me something he's actually blown up. And the other part with the RICO thing is they still have not shown a single other bad actor but Diddy.
Right.
If I go around and do a one-man crime spree, you can get me for a lot of stuff, but RICO is not one of them. You got to show me somebody else that has done something that helped the actions, and we don't have anything except for the one guy who bought some drugs and baby oil.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we have the guy we're going to talk about later, and so I don't know where the other people are going to come from, but I'm less critical of their strategy than you guys are, because I think that they're trying to convince the jury that all of these things happened, that they happened across state lines, right? Cassie's already copped to all this sex stuff. You already have the prostitute copping to the sex stuff across state lines. So that's how they're getting the trafficking. And then once they get people to believe, well, of course, all this stuff happened, they're going to weave in bad boy. That's where I think that it is. But I don't know how that's going to happen, because I think, Diddy's no fool. And he grew up tough, and his mom is a pimp, right? So when he denies that anything happened, he was like, oh, I didn't do it. That's rule number 1 in the streets. You never admit to anything, right? And to Attorney Carter's point, you don't do stuff yourself, because that's how you get caught on video. And so I think that their challenge is likely connecting him to all of this stuff. But I'm assuming they're not going to waste all this money and everybody's time if they don't have a connection.
But hold on. There are two things that you said. There are two things that you said that made a lot of sense to me. All right. Okay. I get what you're saying about the connection. So I think in the mind of lawyers, you see the connection. right? But in the mind of the everyday person, that Cassie having sex with all those paid escorts, it's not registering in the mind of regular people that is sex trafficking. I don't care. I understand, Shaitan,
Right.
and 10% what you said to me. I understand in the law, I understand, but somewhere it's not clicking in my head. All I'm seeing over and over and over in my head right now is her getting beat up and stomped out.
But let me give you an example of the weak evidence for sex trafficking. So the Mann Act, we talked about this before. It's very simple. You pay someone to come across state lines for sex, it's an automatic violation. Yep. They called the one guy that never traveled across state lines. Yep. That dude lives in New York.
Right. No. He did say he did say that they would bring him to Miami.
Didn't he? He went to Miami.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he went.
Yeah, did they say that?
Yeah, they did. I remember he did say that. Because remember, he was one of the favorite ones.
I'm not sure.
He would go to Miami to the white party at his house in Miami.
We talking about the Punisher?
Yeah.
Because I saw him on the interview. He said it last week. He was like, I don't know why they even called me because I don't have even that. I couldn't even tell him that. The only thing he could tell him was how strenuous it was and how it looked difficult and et cetera. But
he was one of the favorites, right?
Yeah, but the guy they brought in first, I'm like, you don't even show me a guy. It's into me what you would do. I would do maybe because they do it better than I would ever do it. But I would come in with receipts and be like, look, these are airline tickets we bought. This person flew here. Let me show you one person we flew across the country to do this.
Yeah. I definitely
right.
And I'm here's the private plane manifesto that shows that he was on it or his name. I mean, look,
there's also all the drugs.
I'm hopeful for the prosecution's sake that they explain to all of us, lawyers and non-lawyers alike, that all you need for the sex trafficking is crossing state lines.
Got it. Okay.
And that is it.
Right. Yes.
But I haven't seen anything near RICO. And I agree with Attorney Carter. I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to have to. They got to get someone in.
There's also all the drugs, though, and the weapons that they found. So they haven't even got to that.
No, I agree. Hold on.
And they're fine, but they got to show that somebody else was helping. All right, Diddy was doing all of his guns, and he sawed off the stuff himself. And this is what I don't get is like you have a bunch of people who work for Diddy. Remember Diddy's making the band? He was firing people every week. You can't find somebody else in Bad Boy who wants to come testify against him.
Yes,
he probably had 100 ex-employees.
We're ready to talk about it right now. Let's keep it moving. All right, next up, George Kaplan's abuse and cover-up allegations. For those who don't know, George Kaplan is a 34-year-old assistant to P. Diddy who worked 100 hours a week cleaning up after the freak-offs. He witnessed beatings of Cassie and another woman, and he disposed of drugs and those alleged infamous signed NDAs. All right, Attorney Turner, I need to know if Kaplan signed an NDA, how is his testimony allowed in federal court?
There is no civil document that can preclude criminal testimony.
What does that mean?
That means that he can testify. That's what that means.
And even in the NDA,
hold on. Put us all back on the screen because I am lost. I need to know. In order for me to convict this man, I need to make sure that I'm making the right decision in how I'm reading the evidence that's coming across the desk. Correct? So explain that to me. A civil document. So an NDA doesn't stand up in federal court.
You can't use a non-disclosure agreement to avoid testifying when you're compelled to do so. You just can't.
So what do you mean by in the document?
Well, hold on. What do you mean by compelled? Because remember, he denied. He said he didn't want anything to do with this.
So they subpoenaed him to do it, and you have to testify. The thing is, the non-disclosure agreements, when you draft them, and the other thing is, the utility of them have been really watered down after the Me Too movement. So they used to be stronger than they were. But the purpose of it is to prevent people from speaking publicly and like spreading gossip and rumors and testifying or not testifying, but making comments in the media about the subject of whatever is in the non-disclosure agreement. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut. But not in a mafia way, right? Like it's not, this isn't like, Don Corleone where people were willing to die because they had something on a piece of paper, right? This is just somebody signed it and they were like, oh, I agree not to go on the celebrity court of public opinion and talk to Al, Jason, and Sean and Chatan about it, right? That's what the NDA is. But if they compel you to come to court, you have to testify.
Okay, I like it. Okay, let's go really quickly. Jason's fan, Christine R, says, why y'all keep cutting Jason off? Well, first of all, I didn't ask Jason a question. I asked the question to Turner, and I wanted to hear Turner answer it, Miss Christine R. Just kidding. Then Abby NYC says, cleaning up a body is illegal, not baby oil and drugs. See, I really feel like a lot of people have that same sentiment. I really do. I really do. But okay, hold on. Hold the thought, sir. I got you. I want you, Jason, in this question that you're asking, tell me, because JP Mills says that the assistant George got immunity. Why would he? I don't what he got immunity because he was supplying the drugs and the baby oil, or he was ordering the guns and all that stuff. So clearly that's he's working for Diddy. So isn't that enterprising it?
So to be a co-conspirator, he needs to do something to further the conspiracy, to further the act. Merely going in and cleaning up afterwards doesn't make you a co-conspirator.
Unless you're buying drugs.
Well, but that's it would if he's buying, but he's really the one going in and cleaning up, and that's where he probably got his immunity. The cleaning up after the freak offs and all that, he couldn't get charged for that. But if he's buying the drugs, if he's supplying the drugs, if he's doing all of that, they don't want him. So they're going to say, look, if you come in and you admit you bought the drugs and you did all this,
right?
We'll let you go, but you need to tell us, hint, hint, wink, wink, that you gave him the P. Diddy. That's what we want to hear. If you gave him the P. Diddy, we're going to give you immunity because we want him. We don't want you.
Well, there was a nuance here, though. To your point, Al, when he said he didn't want anything to do with this, he was refusing to talk. And then they presented him with the immunity agreement, which meant he had no excuse. So he had pled the fifth. And so then once you get presented with the immunity agreement, it neutralizes your ability to do that. So he couldn't do that anymore. So they think he knows stuff, knows more. And even if he didn't sell the drugs, if he cleaned up, a bucket full of drugs, right, and disposed of them, then that does implicate him in criminal activity.
That's what I was going to ask you, Carter, because you're looking down there like you know something. Can being asked to clean up after illegal activity, all right, can that make you a co-conspirator? It's illegal activity.
The cleanup you do must be somewhat illegal. So let me give you an example. If you ask me to bury the body that you just killed, all right, that's a crime. I'm gonna get accessory after the fact. I'm gonna get co-conspirator. I'm gonna get a problem. If you ask me, by the way, to clean up this juice you spilled, all right, that's not a crime. All right. So if it was the baby oil, whatever things they would find, even throwing out the trash. Right, that's not illegal. All right, what's legal is you'd have to know that you were doing something in furtherance of the crime. You'd have to be trying to
hold on, Carter. Like you're really just messing with my head. Mm-hmm. Now your boss is sex trafficking, flying in a prostitute, flying in, holding Diddy. He testified that he's seen Diddy beat her. You got to have the drugs laid out. That's illegal. And the fact that you're cleaning up and getting rid of them so Diddy doesn't have his paw prints on any of that, that's illegal.
No, it's illegal certainly to buy the drugs.
But it's not co-conspirating?
No, and obviously didn't want for that.
You know what it's being used for?
It's illegal to buy the drugs. No doubt about it.
That's accessory after the fact. It's not.
But cleaning up after is not.
Okay, then answer me this. How can people who drive the getaway car at a bank robbery be charged co-conspirators when they didn't go in the bank, they didn't pull out no guns?
They helped you do it. You were able to do it. So if you buy the drugs,
isn't he helping Diddy do it?
But it's different we're talking about two different things. One, if you help beforehand, absolutely, you buy the drugs. But if you come in and Right, but if you just come in and clean up the place after, you saying you were talking about after. If you just come in and clean up the place,
I'm talking about his entire.
No, and that's why he has immunity. He's committed some crimes here.
Attorney Carter, take
for a second though.
Right, I was going to say take Judge's scenario, right? Driving the getaway car, co-conspirator, but they pull up to your house afterwards. They ring your doorbell and they say, "Hey, can we get rid of this car? We want to get rid of it." And you're like, "Yeah, I can bring it to the junkyard and take care of it for you." Accessory after the fact. That's where the difference is.
Okay, guys, explain that one more time. Explain that one more time.
Though, for the algoriters that I think we should clarify. The first thing is you were talking about him getting immunity and why. What Attorney Weiss and Attorney Carter have supported is that there are a variety of legal theories that could implicate this guy, which would motivate him to want to stay quiet. So the fact that he got immunity means he doesn't have to worry about what legal theory might cover what he did. He can testify without that being a concern. So that answers your first question. Now, if we want to talk about the types of crimes that he might be implicated in, I think that is worthwhile, but I just wanted to clarify that for the algoriters.
All right, cool. So I did see someone right here, Melina _NC said, Al, that assistant didn't think he was helping in sex trafficking, definitely after the fact. Okay, I could give you the sex trafficking one, Melina, but after doing that for 5 years, cleaning up semen and blood, because they said semen and blood and baby oil and lube all over the place. Come on. You're not.
That's just a typical Thursday night on South Beach.
Hold on. As an assistant, you ordering his drugs, you ordering his guns, you ordered the hotel, you ordered Cassie's car, you ordering the pimp's cars, you're doing all this stuff. You know that ain't legal. You know that ain't right.
Wait, can I tell y'all something I saw on Instagram about Diddy today? It was one of the funniest things ever. This guy was talking about, and I think you all can relate to this. You guys are lazy. He outlined everything that Diddy did in a day, and he was like, he was having 19 orgasms. He was working a full-time job. He was engaged in freak-offs. He was abusing women. Like he was like, when did he sleep? It was one of the funniest things ever. But yeah, I have no idea how anybody was fitting out all this time. But George knew.
George definitely knew. I mean, he knew everything. Okay, let's go to this, and I'm gonna come back to you, Turner, for this one. What legal weight does pattern? Because I do, and I will admit to this. What it looks like to me, to Shaitan, this is why I'm bringing you this topic. They are definitely laying a railroad track, a pattern of behavior. Mm-hmm. Okay, is pattern of behavior more important when you're trying to do a racketeering case? Is it more important when you're trying to do a sex trafficking case, a racketeering case, the RICO stuff? Is the pattern what's going to take this prosecution story to the level it needs to go for the jury?
When attorneys try to show that a pattern of behavior occurred, it's because they're trying to get some sort of escalated conviction or escalated damages. And gotcha. So for like I said, for the RICO piece of it and the part that relates to him and his business enterprise, I think they're trying to show the pattern because this wasn't a one-off. It wasn't accidental. He was decades. He was using the resources of his company to facilitate his criminal enterprise.
Got it. Okay.
That's what they're trying to show. And so that's why I said they're laying the groundwork so that at least the jury believes that all of these things happened, right? They see Diddy, they see Freak Off, they see cars blowing up. They're like, okay, I believe this dude did this. And then the lawyers are going to go the extra level and say it wasn't just Diddy the man, it was Diddy the mogul. And it was Diddy the mogul through Bad Boy. And that was the vehicle that he used to facilitate this criminal enterprise.
Okay, now this is making sense to me.
Black card. He used his corporate American Express black card to purchase things like baby oil,
hotel,
to purchase things like hotels, to purchase things like cars, planes. that corporate card was used, and that might be
that's gotta be the nail. That's gotta be the nail in the coffin.
No,
right?
but he's still going to need someone else to have used that card too. I give you an example.
The assistant.
Yeah, there was
exactly, but somebody else has to have used that card.
Cassie used that card to go shopping.
That's fine. I'm saying they got to demonstrate that. They're gonna have to demonstrate that. And right now, I don't have anybody but Diddy running around committing all that, like Attorney Turner said. Right now, he looked like the man who never sleep. He looked like he's doing all the stuff, and that's not Rico. You need somebody else who helped you do something. You need to rob somebody help you do something.
So when it comes to George, because he's an employee, right? Is he an employee of Bad Boy? This is what I need to know. Or was he an employee of Diddy? And is there a difference when it comes to employment law? And how does the employment law intersect with the criminal exposure?
So you can't like have anybody commit a crime for you and have that be okay under the law. But where it gets to be part of this overall case is if he was a Bad Boy employee and he was using for freak off purposes, right? Either actively freaking off or cleaning up after the freak off, then that helps to show that it was the enterprise, right? Is the illegal direction of the enterprise that was used in order for this. So like he has his private assistant and all that kind of stuff, but he has, you know, all of these people who worked for the company, you know, were they used to facilitate this? And I think that's going to come out. But Attorney Carter is not the only person, and neither are you, to say we think this RICO business is bollocks. There's been a lot of articles that are like, where are the other defendants? I want to see the other defendants. This doesn't make sense to me. So either these prosecutors are trying to create something new, or they have, you know, tricks in a bag somewhere.
Well, and here's the thing is for RICO, you know, I think they wanted to bring, you know, the most obvious case of domestic violence and all that. There's no federal basis for that. The timeline had been going for a lot of this. RICO is the only thing you can kind of keep going back to. And for them, as far as the RICO thing, all you need is 2 coordinated acts. But here's the thing about it. By the way, if the 4 of us decide today we're going to go rob a bank, that's not RICO.
I'm too pretty to go to jail.
We need we're going to go to jail, but we need to rob 2 banks before it becomes RICO. You see what I'm saying? Okay. One coordinated bad action does not make it. So that's part of the reason why you have to do the pattern. At least you got to have at least 2 to make it RICO. Otherwise, you're not a criminal enterprise. You're just fools who did something one time. Right? You got to at least do it a number of times. The other thing about patterning is you try to establish by circumstantial evidence in a sense. And this is where it works and doesn't work. Think about it. If you wanted to prove that I robbed a particular liquor store, you might say, hey, every day at this time, he showed up at this place, and today he didn't. He was somewhere different. It doesn't prove that I was there, but it's part of the pattern. Right? So what we're saying here is that we're going to show you a pattern of things. It doesn't necessarily happen. It didn't mean it necessarily happened, but if we can show you 35 coincidences, you might believe it actually happened. Right. But that's a lower form of proof than it is if you actually have a receipt.
All right, Christine R says, and she's gonna face a RICO from Tova if she don't stop. So if I buy a pair of booty shorts with Jason Scorpion, is that RICO? Hey, wait. This said, Christine, leave that man alone.
So George Kaplan was an employee of Combs Enterprises.
Okay.
And that's the company that manages his various businesses.
That clearly is there's your 2 people. There's your 2 people. Okay, so basically what we're hearing is that silently the prosecutors from a law standpoint are proving their case. It's a little weak, but they're getting there.
They're getting there.
But again, they're going to have to do a good job of spoon feeding the jury the path that they need to go on. They need to push them down that path, and they're not. And again, we're not in the courtroom, so we can't do this, and it's not streaming. But I am watching during the course of the day, and it just doesn't seem.
It doesn't feel no. Because remember, the other part of this is, Jason, and I agree with you, you have to convince every jury member all the same. That it was 110% done, and they all believe it. Okay, let's keep moving on because we got so much going on. Thank you, lawyers, for this. All right, I'm going to skip, or should we not skip? How important do you guys think Dr. Dawn Hughes? Let's go to our algoriters real quick. Algoriters, this is to determine whether we skip this part or not. We can come back to it another time, but we're pressed on time. How important, algoriters, do you feel the psychologist, the forensic psychologist, Dr. Dawn Hughes' testimony, where she explained trauma bonding, she explained economic control, and she explained manipulation. And she you want to cover that?
I just think it's important based on the fact that, look, and I brought it up on the show that we did last week about she had the opportunity to leave and didn't leave, and I did get some backlash for it. And again, that has to do with the trauma bonding, and the trauma bonding is all about I treat you bad and then I say I'm sorry and I reward you and I bring you gifts. So what is that? That is you take the bad because you get rewarded and you don't want to leave.
So am I hearing you say that trauma bonding and how does trauma bonding, is that consent and control? That's weak.
I don't know if it's consent and control. I think it's just it's the psychological that's going through her head. It was, yes, I'm going to allow him to treat me like this because I'm going to get rewarded. I think that's just explaining why she didn't leave when she had the opportunity.
Okay, hold on. I love that. Hold on. Ton, I want to go to you really quickly as the resident female. All right. Mm-hmm. Do you think the prosecutors, and this has jumped in my head, do you think the prosecutors thought that it was crucial to bring the psychologist on now because of how, and I have to agree, Jason felt about, why didn't she just leave? Like, and a lot of people are like, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just walk out? I said it. Why didn't you just leave the hotel when the security guard came and everybody ate me a new butthole? They were like, oh, y'all, you victim shaming. No, I wanted to know if a security guard came to protect me, this was my time to get out. I was leaving anyway. Why didn't you leave? So tell me, do you think that this psychologist was brought in to help dwarf that building, that rumbling, that undercurrent of people needing to know and convince why she did not leave?
For the record, I was one of the people that accused you of victim shaming. But yeah, I think that the prosecutors were reading the room and also were recognizing that there were aspects of Cassie's story that seemed implausible for lay people. So even though you've lived a very exciting life, Your Honor, and I get the impression Jason has too, and that's why Christine keeps coming for him, but not everybody, and Sean with the slips and all, I think he's been fairly sedate, but not everybody can relate to people partying in that way. Like even if Cassie hadn't been a beauty, everybody has like been to parties where there's strippers, bags of money, baby oil, and everybody kind of just like having a good time and doing shots. Like that's not everybody's reality. And so I think that they wanted to give the jury a theory where the jury could easily conclude that there was another reason for Cassie staying except for she was having this grand old time. And they just had a fight one time, right? And so the rationale was bringing this forensic psychologist that can give us an idea about what motivates behavior. You mentioned consent and control. What trauma bonding is about is it's a theory that supports that someone might not have truly consented, because consent is supposed to be a voluntary decision that someone makes to do something or not do something. What trauma bonding is a theory that says, look, psychologically, this person was deprived of the ability to be volitional because there was a pattern in behavior that this person was attempting to manipulate them and control them. And it works. And it doesn't just have to be like, I hit you once and then I give you a diamond necklace. It actually is even deeper than that, because it's a process by which somebody does negative things to another. And then they gaslight you and get you to question whether those things actually occurred. So they're like totally messing with your head. And so then when you're like, well, why don't you leave? It's because like, I'm trying to think like, maybe it wasn't that bad. Like I was upset at the time, but he said it wasn't that bad. And, maybe I did deserve it because I was mouthing off, or maybe, I shouldn't have been spending extra time with the fourth man and the freak off, because that was when I was supposed to leave and be with him. So they had to give some theory that explained why she did what she did. And so
I think that's what that was. Okay, Attorney Carter, then listening to what Shaitan says, can emotional abuse be part of a sex trafficking charge?
Yeah, I mean, remember the sex trafficking is
crazy.
No, but here's the thing is, but
crazy.
No, and here's the thing is, think about it, there are different types of coercion, right? There's physical coercion, there's physical threats. You could blackmail somebody. That's not physical at all. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hit you. I'm just going to tell your mama. I want you to finish this, but I've never been so disconnected with the legal and how and what I see and what I think. Okay, keep going. So think about it. And here's the thing about it is, but that said, and you see it, I'm looking at the comments here. I'm finding it amazing.
I saw that. Aren't they?
About half the people are looking at the psychologist and saying that, and it's true. She was paid to testify. She never investigated. She never examined Cassie.
Paid to charge to work.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, this wasn't some last minute thing that the prosecution did. She was on the witness list because they knew this was going to be an issue. They knew that somebody was going to look at Cassie and say, "Oh, you wanted to do this," and so they brought this woman. And she, by the way, this is what she does, right? She also did the Nexium, if you remember that, the Colt, the Colt case. She did the Amber Heard case. Same issue. Was she trauma bonded? They lost in that one. And here's the thing that I thought was interesting. I spent a lot of time researching this. What's the defense going to do? Right. Because the defense might come, they've already tried to say, hey, you're a paid plant, whatever, but they might bring their own evidence, their own witness, their own psychologist.
I'm sure they're going to, but
because about half the psychologists.
I just wish we had enough time, because the other part of this is the defense now has come forward and said, oh yeah, my client is very abusive. Like what? That shook me to my core. Like the defense came out today and said, yes, he was abusive.
Yes.
But not criminal. Like what?
The reason they did that is because they recognize that they already have enough, like there's been enough evidence to show that he is not the nice guy that was smiling and earning awards.
Got it.
He was mean as a snake and he beat people. And when you throw those videos that Attorney Carter mentioned from Making the Band, it reminds people that he's been mean for a long time, but nobody cared, right? And from the defense's perspective, they're conceding that he was abusive because they're like, look, this is not a state domestic violence case. This is not a question about whether or not he beat her. Sure, he did that. And that was reprehensible, but he did not engage in sex trafficking. There was no criminal enterprise. Everybody who was partying was there for the good time. And so that's where I think they're going with it. Like, sure.
Yeah, but just think, can I ask, I just feel like maybe I'm just slow when it comes to this case, because this is my thing, right? If you admit to me that my client or that the guy that I'm trying to charge all this bad stuff with is abusive, right? You're admitting to more wrongdoing, but you're denying that he had criminal intent or a smart, like he had an enterprise to do bad things. Like he's morally wrong because you're admitting that he's abusive, but you're denying that his criminal intent and how he set this up and how he ran it for decades.
If you were the defense, would you do the other and say, you know what? Cassie made me do all this. I didn't want to do none of this. Cassie was making the calls. She just made me do this. I didn't want to sit in the corner and watch her do this stuff. She made me do it. She was abusive to me. Mm-hmm. You could argue that. That would be a bad argument. It'd be unbelievable. You can't go to someone and look at what they're looking at when they saw the video and then try to tell them they didn't see what they saw.
Exactly. I would not go on. For me, I probably would not go on the record calling my client abusive, what I would go on the record saying is that this is not a case about domestic violence. And I would repeat that every time I had a chance to talk, that we've got to stay focused on what the charge is and not on what we saw happen, which is wrong. I would never say that my client is abusive, because abusive doesn't have to be just physical.
Right.
Well, but they have a credibility issue, right? And I agree with Attorney Carter. The video tells the story. Whether they say he's abusive or not, the video shows he's abusive. So they didn't say anything the jury didn't already believe. And so by giving them and admitting to that, they align themselves with the truth, because the video doesn't lie. Now,
that didn't make me feel good. I would have cussed my lawyers out. I'm sorry. I would have been like, what the what?
I'll think about it.
The video is there. We've all the only video that's probably ever sold better ever was the Pamela Anderson sex tape. So this is the #2 grossing selling video ever. It's there. You watch this man in a towel.
Right. I'm not denying that he's a bad person for beating her. What I'm denying is, as my attorneys, I would be saying we're focusing on the wrong thing. That's okay. We know you saw the tape. But I know that you saw my client doing bad things on the tape. However, that's not what this case is about, right?
And that's what I would be
constantly. That's what I would be.
That's what they're doing.
That's
you just don't like the fact that they admitted that he was a bad man, right?
I don't know that I would have docked them a whole day of pay.
Well, let me give you a little hint from a professional liar. All right, the things that you admit to give you more credibility for the next lie you tell. All right.
Oh, okay. Say that.
You see what I'm saying? Right.
Yeah.
If they can say, oh, well, at least he told the truth about that, then they can believe you told the truth about the next thing. Or you can't go out there and tell someone the opposite of what they just saw, and then expect they're going to believe the next thing you tell them. You got to give up.
I love that, Attorney Carter. I love that. I think okay. I'm gonna shut up. All right, let's go to the next. Let's go talk about really quickly before we wrap this up, because I really want to know from all of you, what was the point of them today, right? Sharing the federal raid on Diddy's Miami home only. So, of course, that's where they found the disassembled AR-15, the parts, the MDMA, the cocaine, the sex-related items. They saw all those high heel shoes, all those stockings and lace, and then they presented it to support sex trafficking and drug distribution allegations. So why did they only do one house raid, and why was it so important to put that here before the weekend starts?
It just shows what he does, what he has, what he owns, and you said it. You want something. They probably showed that Cassie video one more time, also before they broke for the weekend, because you want to leave them with the impression that this is a bad man. And if
I got to be honest with you, Attorney Weiss, when I saw it, I didn't see bad. I saw freaky over bad. I didn't see anything wrong with that.
What about the guns
and the lace? Hey, I believe in guns. I grew up in Virginia. I got a couple of guns in my house.
If you do have sawed-off ones where you sawed the barrel off, find it. Don't say no. Don't say no. Plead the fifth.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying I don't have those.
Exactly. And that's what they're saying. They're going to show that.
I'm saying, but what I want you to think, Carter, is like a regular citizen, not like a lawyer who knows that an AK-15 sawed off is highly illegal.
See, that's what I think they're going on.
Person's mind, they're just going to think, oh, he has some guns. He's freaky. He wanted his women in high heels. He wanted, the lace and okay, drugs. Well, hell, people do drugs.
And that may be true. I see it almost exactly the opposite, though. Is that what they're doing is they have a legal. Here's what I'm doing. Legally, this is weak. They can't tie those guns to any crimes. All right. They can't tie the burner phones to any crimes. But what they're saying is, what kind of rational person, what kind of law-abiding citizen runs around with
what kind of mogul who runs a good business do it like this?
Thank you. You think Bill Gates got a bunch of burner phones and sawed-off shotguns in his garage?
Not the shotguns, but the burner phones.
And to Attorney Carter's point about painting this picture, right? He's also accused of all this grimy, illegal ish, like going into people's, these are rumors from over the years that are probably gonna come out, but busting down doors with guns and trying to get people to do stuff. Like, so then when you say, well, we found a bunch of sawed-off shotguns at his house, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, it's probably plausible circumstantially.
Gotcha. All right, Attorney Turner, you better earn your $1 tonight, baby. Your 50 cents. I'll send you your 50 cents tonight. Okay. All right. Okay, y'all convinced me. Well, last thing. Can you be convicted for RICO charges without direct evidence of trafficking?
I looked into this, and yes, you can. In any crime, you can be convicted of any crime without circumstantial evidence. On the basis of just circumstantial evidence that people look at it and go, you know what? This had to happen. Think about it. We have times where people get convicted. There's no body. All right. We never find the body. We don't have direct evidence that you killed him at all. But if you're the last person who him alive, you had on your machine, on your computer that I was going to kill him. You were looking for how to kill him and get away with it on your search engine. All right, we have that all the time. I think that Scott Peterson, all right, it was in jail. You don't actually have to have direct evidence. I took a lot of risk of this because I said, are they going to try to convict this man of these crimes on circumstantial evidence? And it looks like a lot of it's going to be circumstantial. That's why it's so important and why they keep going back to what a bad guy is and how he's a deviant. Because people are gonna look at this at the end and go, do I have enough evidence? And they're hoping that the jury goes, I don't know, but I don't want his freaky butt on the streets. Yeah. I got sisters out there.
Or the opposite. I don't know. And because I don't know, I don't want him to go away for a long time.
That's what the defense is going to hope for, right?
He could be freaky. He could be abusive, but RICO and all of that is saying up to life. I don't know if I'm convinced enough that unanimously all of us on this jury are going to say, yes, he deserves to go to jail.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think the prosecution, they were sincere when they made him that plea deal. And I don't know what it was for how many years. It would have been a lot of years, but I think they really were like, you know what? I'm not sure we got all the stuff we need. And the last thing they want to have to happen is what you say, Al, is where people go, you know what? I don't like him, but I haven't proven to beyond a reasonable doubt because, like you said, money they spent on this, there's some careers. There's going to be people lose their jobs if they don't get this conviction.
Oh, yeah.
You know that poem they say that everything I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. You can also apply playground rules to most scenarios. So I think to what Attorney Carter, and I know we can all think about people who we know that they've done lots of bad stuff. And if someone told us they did something else, we'd be like, oh, I can't put anything past them. That's what this case is about. He's done all of these things that they're going to keep playing that drum over and over. And then when they get down to trying to get him for the big thing, for the conviction, they want the jury to believe you can't put anything past Diddy because this is the kind of man he is. And to your point, Al, his lawyers called him abusive.
I know. I'm just like, all right. Crystal Johnson says, wow, Armand and Claudia, for those who don't know, those are my ex-co-hosts, had way more viewers than this. Yeah, probably so, because they're gossiping. We got real lawyers talking about real things. Yeah. You can't compare us to two gossipers. Okay, sorry. I hope they wish them the best. And they definitely do have more viewers. This over here, you're learning the law, sweetheart. All right, let's keep it moving. So this is my last before the end of the night. What happens? I want us to talk about really briefly, quickly. I'm going to go to each of you. Jason, what happens if Diddy wins?
He doesn't get any jail time and he's going to try to rehab his career.
Shaitan?
I think his career's over. I think that Diddy needs to, if he wins, take his coins that he has, rehabilitate himself as some sort of, he might replace TD Jakes.
Oh my God. I said the exact same thing. Oh my God. We should not go to the same universities. I said he's going to find Jesus. I said he's going to become a minister of some sorts, and he's going to have a mega church. I said it. I mean, one, the church is very forgiving.
And if you ask some people, not me, but other people who go to church, they say most of the pastors are reformed pimps anyway. So after all of his stuff comes out in court, you know, who better to say, I got a testimony. If Jesus can save me, he can save anybody.
The new social director at Mar-a-Lago.
Attorney Carter, what happens if Diddy wins?
That's a better answer than I had. I don't think he has a career again. He might be able to get in a couple churches. I mean, he's gonna go to Atlanta for sure. He ain't gonna fly pretty much anywhere but Atlanta. But maybe. But the thing about it to me is though, I'm still mad at Diddy that this is a trial. I took a look at the timing from when the officer testified. The officer said we broke in March of 2024, right? Diddy didn't know anything was going on until then. The case for Cassie didn't come out until May. So he didn't know anything was going on. But when they went to get Diddy, when they went to go to the houses, they also caught Diddy. Diddy was going to go to Antigua. And they said, hey, Diddy, before you go, we want to take your phone and all that stuff. Now, if the FBI comes to me and says, I'm raiding 3 of your houses, I want to take all your electronic devices, and I've done anything wrong, I've even jaywalked, I'm not coming back from Antigua. I'm going to learn to speak Antiguan. All right, you will never hear me again. And I looked it up. There are a few places he could have gone from Antigua because Antigua will extradite you, but he could have gone to Dubai. He could have gone to Maldives. He could have gone to Bali. Right. Russell Simmons already there. Got a place set up for him, right? I'm like, Diddy, why in the world, when the FBI told you they were going to your house, you knew you had 1,000 bottles of baby oil, right? At the very least, you knew you were going to be embarrassed. This was going to be ugly for you. Yeah. Why you stayed, I will never understand ever. And part of it is kind of a narcissism that says, I'm Diddy, and they ain't going to do nothing to me. Sure, they're going to come and raid my house. They're going to take all my baby oil, but they ain't going to do nothing to me. Yes, they will.
He's going to be a party planner, and he's going to be the spokesman for Johnson & Johnson baby oil. That's it.
All right, let's go really quickly, because we're over time. Attorney Turner, what if he loses? What are we looking at? What do you think we're looking at?
Oh, in terms of how many years?
Years, partnerships, career.
I mean, if he loses, he's going to be in prison for a very long time. So I think that answers in terms of what his prospects are. I think one of the interesting things I was thinking about, and we weren't talking about him today, but I was thinking, like, if you consider how many songs that he produced and how many artists he collaborated with, and you combine that with Smokey Robinson's playbook and, Bill Cosby's shows, so much stuff is canceled. Do we really have any pop culture? So I got to wrap my brain around it. Ask me next time we talk about him where I think.
All right, let's go to you, Jason. So this is what I'm thinking in the question. Is he going to get prison life? Or do you think it's going to be years? If so, how many? Second question. Yep. What happens to all the the civil charges that are now coming up with all the women who claimed all this stuff and all of the men who claimed all this stuff? What happens to that if he loses and he's in jail?
I think he's going to get jail time. I think he'll serve somewhere between 10 and 15 years. And I think the civil lawsuits will continue to come and more will pop, and losing criminal or winning criminal is not going to go ahead and prevent any of the civil trials. It'll just be, how much money does this man have? How much can he continue to earn? And who's going to take the money?
Okay, to close us out, Attorney Carter, let me ask you this. I was watching Laura Coates, and she had an attorney on talking about his assets and that he has about $400 million in assets, but if in fact he is found guilty, he explained how because of his business and his personal, that all the 400 million, regardless of how and who purchased what and how he got the cars and how he got the art, all becomes for the picking. Is that true?
There is, and this is the thing. Remember, RICO it was meant for the mob, and there are asset forfeiture provisions. So basically, we'll say anything you used in the RICO conspiracy, the house, you use a house for the freak offs, that's ours. All right. You know what? You use a plane for the freak offs, that's ours. right? There are forfeiture provisions in the RICO. I believe that. I think that is the case. And as a result, he might lose a lot of that just to the Fed.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said so you don't even have to prove that you didn't use any of your bad stuff to buy a watch. That watch is still a part of your assets, so it becomes
they might not take it all though, but they probably would take some of the best stuff. I think Jason's right. Even if certainly if he's found guilty, then the civil trials, they have a lower burden of proof. They can say, hey, if a jury found him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, I know you can find me mostly guilty for the stuff he did to me. And quite frankly, from Diddy's standpoint, it's not gonna matter. I took a look at today. That man is 55 years old. You seen him in the courtroom with the pictures. All right, he looked like me. All right, that's an old man. All right. Well, he an old black man. So if he lived to be 65, that'd be a miracle. All right. Trust me, I ain't gonna make it till next third. Don't expect me to see me in here after September. All right, I ain't gonna make it. All right. And so understand that Diddy, anything he's looking at is almost a life sentence, because even, by the way, aside from the jokes about how old he is, he's 55. Let's say he got 10 years just for the one man act. 10 years for Diddy in prison. And by the way, he's not going to Club Fed for this. He's going to real prison. All right.
Really?
Yes. This isn't white collar crime. He didn't do cryptocurrency. These are violent crimes. He's going in there with everybody. All right. And as a result, you're not gonna make it. Think about it. Tory Lanez made it 6-8 months before he got stabbed up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to
Okay, hold on.
Like Diddy's been living the good, easy life since he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
Right. He ain't built for that hard prison life.
All right, I want to give a shout out to Super Sonny Clark. Thank you for the super chat. It really means the world to me. Thank you for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. All right, everybody, what an interesting night. If this trial teaches us anything, it's this. I'm learning through this lens that power doesn't protect you forever, but it can silence people for a very long time, like in this Diddy case. For years, Sean Combs was a kingmaster. But what we're seeing unfold in this courtroom is a test of the culture's conscience. Are we brave enough to admit that our idols might be villains? Are we honest enough to see the systems that protect them because they are famous? Are we informed enough to understand the differences between messy morality and federal crime, which is what we're talking about here? Whether he walks free or not, this trial has already exposed to us how money, fear, and fame have created a force field around what people want to know, which is the truth. And in the court of public opinion, that force field just shattered, because here with me and my legal beagles, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of us finally asking and learning the right questions and the law. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Good night. Stay informed. And guess what? Also, stay unafraid. I'm Al Reynolds, and court is now adjourned.